staff cannot give what they don't have. I mean, if we don't create an environment for our staff that's hyper engaging, then how do we expect them to engage our guests? BJX is a boutique consulting firm. We specialize in training and consulting specifically around guest experience and fan engagement in professional sports. My background is I'm a prior director of training for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, and I also worked for Nordstrom in a prior life. So I try to bring that elite level service and those principles and best practices to bear in the sports industry. When you talk about building a sports philosophy or building service standards, first of all, it's very important to distinguish the difference between kind of standards as they relate to the overall organizational philosophy. Standards are more at the ground level, right? They really get into the behaviors that we're looking for our staff to embody. It's a promise to our guests, the fans, visitors, and quite frankly, the community at large. They level set and create the foundation for the culture. This becomes our guiding light. This is who we are. This is what we do. And this is how we do it. And if you're going to have a culture that's both quality and consistent, then you've got to have great standards that everyone buys into. What do we want people to say, think, and feel when they walk away? And then it has to pass what I call the grandmother test. Can my grandmother remember it and understand them? Can she get it? The grandmother test. The other thing is there are three, I would call it the kind of the service standard essentials. Number one, are they actionable? Are they observable? And are they memorable? Now, whether you use an acronym to get there, a word and use each letter, that's fine, but each of those letters should be an actionable word. We know that in a given building, you may have 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 different entities or partner organizations that are all coming together to engage the guests. And the guests don't know that, but we know that. How do you ensure that they're all on the same page? First of all, there's a number of things that you have to do. Number one, we have to establish building-wide standards. Now, we're already talking about standards, but I have seen in some cases where one of the providers they got their own standards. No, we already got our standards. Another group where they got their standards. And they're all well-meaning, but they're not the same. Because there's a big difference between what I call coexistence and cohesion. Most buildings, every partner, every organization, they're coexisting. But that's not the same as working together cohesively. The other thing I think is so important is being careful of the disconnect between the front office and the front line. Staff cannot give what they don't have. I mean, if we don't create an environment for our staff that's hyper engaging, then how do we expect them to engage our guests? Disengaged people. Training falls into 3 buckets. First of all, there's what I call the building. There's training for that. The second type of training is what I call the job. That's how you do your job. But the third category, I call it the experience. Guest experience training, it has different objectives and must be approached differently. Now I got to get these folks to buy into something. So this is what I call behavior-based training. So it's not just it's 1 part information, 2 parts inspiration. And if I don't inspire and inform them, they may show up and park in the right parking lot, walk in the right door, put on the right uniform, and perfectly operate the popcorn machine, and yet not even make a step towards embodying our standards. When you get into guest experience training, it's got to be interactive, you got to have gamification, you got to have music. I mean, you got to have all the bells and whistles to get them to buy in. I'm a strong believer now that going forward, we're going to have to adopt both an in-person approach to training and development and have a robust and effective digital way of also training and developing our staff. The idea of pulling hundreds of people into a room, scheduling training, and just doing it at the drop of a dime is different now. It's just not as readily available as an approach. And I think there's actually an advantage in blended learning. So blended learning is understanding that nothing will ever fully take the place of in-person training. That's just a fact. But at the same time, the digital learning, there's a way to do it that is engaging. And that was important to me. If we're going to do this, we need to do it in a way that's going to be as close to in-person as possible.